is Max Hoberman, the original online and multiplayer design lead for Halo 2. Max is also president of Austin-based developer Certain Affinity. Next up is Frank Balson, who works at Blur Studio. He's a director there. Blur is a studio that some of you might be familiar with. We're going to talk a lot about their work, but they've worked on things like the Halo 4 TV trailer as well as Halo 4 Spartan Ops. Next up, certainly last but not least, is a man you all know, Frank O'Connor, franchise development. So as I was saying, we talked a lot about the Master Chief Collection, introducing the project, as well as introducing Halo 2 Anniversary specifically earlier this month. And what I'd like to do for anyone who might not have seen that panel is recap just a bit about the Master Chief Collection and how we're bringing all of these games together. So Dennis, would you like to speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, so, I mean, right from the get-go, there's so much content that's offered, right? We have Halo 1 Anniversary, Halo 2 Anniversary, Halo 3, Halo 4. We have guaranteed access to the Halo 5 Guardians multiplayer beta, and Halo Nightfall, the digital series with Ridley Scott Productions. So there's so much content. And for us, we just really wanted to make sure that we focus on making sure the games are, easily accessible, and that we make sure that that nostalgic element of what Halo is can be remembered by all the fans and easily enjoyed, and then also try to add some sort of new elements to it. So,
you want to hop over to Bill?
Great, there we go. So we have our main menu up here. Excellent. So right away you see, for us, we really wanted to make sure it was easy to launch into all these games. And the way that we were able to do that was by taking off sort of the user interface level or layer for all of the individual games and creating a single user interface that connects them all. And that really allowed us to do some pretty cool things, so that you could just jump in here and immediately just start playing any game. Since they're all on one disc with the Xbox One, we were able to do that. And so as we looked and we started thinking about, we want to make sure people can have those same great memories that they were always playing back in the good old days. So we unlocked every mission. We didn't want to have to make people play through each game all again so they can get to those favorite missions that they love so much about each of their games. Well, when we did that, that opened up new opportunities for us to allow people to play Halo the way they want to play Halo. So if you out there love vehicles, you can come into, say, Halo CE Anniversary and just play maps, all the missions that actually have vehicles on them. So now you can really begin to customize how you want to play Halo. It gets a lot more interesting when you start applying that logic across all games. So suddenly you can have the incredible Master Chief Saga Marathon, where you just start from the first level of Halo 1 and play non-stop to the end of Halo 4. I guarantee you, a good portion of this audience is going to give it a try. Please take frequent bathroom breaks, please.
Have you done this thing?
Yeah. I'm in test right now. It's not pretty. No, but a lot of fun. I'm really excited for all the fans to begin to play, Halo sort of as they want to play Halo. And for us, that was really important to make sure we had this as sort of like a single experience. Well, campaign is only part of what Halo is. There's a lot more. There's also multiplayer. And multiplayer is, quite incredible with Halo, especially when you start to think about all of the maps that exist. There's over 100 multiplayer maps. We're talking every single map created for Halo, which includes all the PC versions as well. So when you start cycling through some of these, it just gets kind of ridiculous. So making sure all of this content was easily consumable was important to us. And so, we wanted to set up a process where you go in, you search for a match, and then what it does is it brings, based on whatever game you love, in my case it's Team Slayer, but you jump in, you're matched with a bunch of people who also love Team Slayer, and then you get to vote on what version multiplayer you want to play. So if it's Halo 1 and everyone in your party wants to play Halo 1, you can do that. It's going to load up the original multiplayer from Halo 1. That's right, the original multiplayer from Halo 1, as it existed back then, never before able to play over Xbox Live until now on console. So this is pretty awesome. Then you can do it. You can play Halo 1 multiplayer with all your friends. When you're done, you'll come out, and then you'll end up going back and selecting another version of multiplayer. It could be Halo 3 or Halo 2. And it's just a seamless experience. So it's a lot of fun. We think the fans are really going to enjoy it. And you know, we also had to make sure that we could do some other cool things, specifically around control schemes. One thing I know that Bravo loves, and made sure that I bring it up here, is the universal control scheme around bumper jumper. That's right, so finally you can actually enjoy bumper jumper for all of your favorite Halo games. And you can actually have that same control scheme one right after another. Yeah, so for us it was actually really exciting to sort of create a unified experience.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about, like, really at the onset, when you looked at, as we mentioned, your lead producer for Halo Combat Evolved Anniversary as well, when you looked at that project and then looking ahead to Halo 2 Anniversary, what were some of those things right away that you knew that you wanted to do?
Well, so as we thought about, as we thought about campaign, we knew it was going to be important for, you need to switch.
I think we're going to fire up the running build of campaign for the first time in a panel right now.
Yeah. That's right. So you guys are looking at Pirate Station. And right away for us, what was really important when we started thinking about Halo 2 Anniversary, the campaign, and remastering it, we had to make sure it played identical to the original game. So what we did was we took the original game code, just like with Halo 1 Anniversary, and we just sort of brought it right over to the Xbox One, and we hooked up two different rendering engines to it. So the original classic engine and rendering engine, and also a completely remastered next-gen rendering engine. This allowed us to do something what we call classic mode. So that at any point in time, you can hit the back button, or it's the view button on the Xbox One controller, and you can see what the game looked like 10 years ago. So here's what it looks like today, and this is what it looks like 10 years ago. Yeah, it's pretty significant. Now the awesome part is with the Xbox One, that switch is just incident, or just instantaneous. Thank you, Max. Or instant. And it allows you to really have no gameplay interference, whereas the 360 version of that version, there's a little bit of a fade in, fade out. Additionally, we've added achievements. More achievements in this game than in any other Xbox game. That's 4,000 achievement points for this game alone. A lot of them have been changed and rewritten and make sure that everyone can have sort of a new creative way to play Halo. Additionally, skulls. Everyone loves the Halo skulls. They're hidden across the level, and once you find them, you can turn them on and you can modify your gameplay. There are more skulls in this game than ever before. There's over 30 skulls to change your gameplay. And then, of course, fiction. Fiction is always an important part here. So we found only the best partners to work with, and we really wanted to make sure that we told the Halo 2 cinematic story in a very creative and high quality way. And so we worked with Blur Studios. And so we're really excited. We have Ron here on the panel. We're going to talk a little bit more about it.
Cool. Thank you, Dennis. To more about the fiction and working with Blur a little bit later in the panel. One thing I'd like to do, kind of thinking along that same thought though, is talk about how retelling the Halo 2 story really provides an opportunity to connect all the experiences that have been in the past and also the ones that are coming. Frank, can you talk a little bit about some of the people in the room, I'm sure, caught the Halo Nightfall panel yesterday, and people as well, of course, excited about Halo 2 Anniversary and how that all of that even connects into Halo 5 Guardians.
Yeah, so this is obviously the 10th anniversary of Halo 2. I think you guys looking at the UI got some sense of just how much content is just in the game. But there's some stuff that we're adding to the story as well. We obviously have Halo Nightfall. The digital series comes when you buy Master Chief Collection, and what that does is introduce the character Locke, who some of you guys met yesterday. He's gonna play a significant role in Halo 5, so you're seeing his origin story in the Nightfall digital series. And that's a kind of a character bridge. It's not a story bridge, but the guys at Blur, aside from remastering all the cinematics for Halo 2, are also creating some new cinematics. We call them bookends in the studio, but that does a disservice. It's going to be a bridging story that's going to connect in a fairly significant way the stories of the Master Chief Collection. And you think about that as the start of the Chief Saga. Directly with events that are going to happen in Halo 5. And of course you're going to get the Halo 5 multiplayer beta in that package as well. So in celebrating the 10th anniversary of Halo 2, we also get to span those stories and connect them all together in a really interesting and meaningful new way. So we're excited for you guys to see that in November.
Well, thank you, Frank. I think another thing, of course, Dennis started to talk a little bit about it, and we talked some about it at RTX, but another huge part of the anniversary treatment is specifically that multiplayer treatment for Halo 2 Anniversary. And as we approach this 10-year anniversary, it's great to have Max Hogerman with us, not only as the original multiplayer and online design lead, but also as president of the studio that's helping bring Halo 2 Anniversary to life in a really big way. I'd like to start really at the beginning and talk a little bit about, I think anyone can chime in here. Frank, you joined the studio working on Halo, started working during Halo 2 development, and can you talk a little bit about just how big, I mean, Halo 2 was for multiplayer, how big Live was for Halo, and how big Halo was for Live. I think there's a lot there that we haven't talked about yet in the public, and I think it'd be really cool to start to tell that story.
Yeah, when I started on Halo 2 in 2003, and at that point I was working in the industry, but I was basically just a Halo fan. And I think if we polled this audience and asked people how much time they'd spent on campaign, the answer with Halo 1 is going to be anywhere between 8 and, whatever, hundreds of hours maybe. But if we ask how many hours you've spent on multiplayer, it's disproportionately more. So in my head, and I wasn't quite this naive, but at least in my head I thought, well, they have to have a fairly significant multiplayer department because it's more than half of your experience is playing multiplayer. And I got there, and it was 2 guys. One of whom was Max, and that was the entire multiplayer organization effectively. I mean, there's shared resources, but that was it. And it was crazy to see the scale of how campaign creates the assets in the sandbox for multiplayer. But it was insane to me that the multiplayer team, which had been responsible for so much joy and fun, was 2 guys, and Max was right in the middle of really, I think it's fair to say, radically changing how you play console multiplayer games. And I think philosophically, and Max had a really hard time trying to explain this because there's no context for it. So he'd be describing parties and matchmaking. We didn't really have context for it because everything was serverless, and we were just playing Mech Assault on the Xbox, and you were sort of finding people manually. And so Max was making decisions that were going to change how Xbox Live itself functioned. So we didn't even have the context to understand what he was really trying to do. But I think the way that he kind of bottled that idea for me was he was literally trying to take the fun parts of being in a LAN, the social parts and the engagement parts and the friendships and the energy that's in that room, and put that on Xbox Live. So he was trying to solve all these technical problems and all these design issues. But he's also trying to take these slightly undefinable things that you get from that social context of being in a basement LAN party blowing circuit breakers. And that was hard. Until you were actually playing it, it was almost impossible to properly contextualize.
Yeah, sure. Dennis and Max, I know you guys, Dennis, you have opportunity over the past few months working on this project to look at some of Max's design documents. You guys want to talk a little bit about those first goals of bringing?
Yeah, it was great being in your office looking at some of the original Halo 2 design documents and kind of what you had to do to explain what a party was. Just the concept didn't even exist, so you had some really cool notes and stuff like that. And I thought it was really awesome.
Yeah, it was a fun time, and I think kind of to Frank's point, people forget that Xbox Live was so primitive at the time. We were really reinventing things from the ground up. So just something as simple as having a friends list accessible in the game, that didn't exist. To check out a friends list, you had to actually exit out of the game back then. So it really started from the ground up, designing in the friends list. And you know, the driving philosophy, like Frank mentioned, was this idea of how do we take this great LAN party experience and how do we, you know, take the best parts of this, take it online. You guys may have heard the term, which I think somebody coined at Bungie, but the virtual couch, and that was kind of our shorthand for this LAN party experience. But yeah, it was tough. It was incredibly difficult to convey the vision for what this was going to be because it was so different. Not, you know, with parties and matchmaking, you can see up on the screen some of the features that we introduced in Halo 2. And this stuff, it was so hard to convey this vision because it was so radically different than what people are used to. You know, people are used to a game server, just go find a server and then hope your friends can get on that server with you. And we were really kind of inverting that and flipping it on its head. And even within Bungie, it was incredibly contentious. You know, there was a camp that said, no way in hell, I'm not going to have a game server, and I want to choose exactly what map I'm going to play on. This matchmaking idea is not going to work, to put it politely. So yeah, it was, you know, it was fun times. It was quite challenging. You can see up there on the screen, grab this shot real quick, but there's the friends list. Before you had it on the guide button, and you had it in this kind of universal format. Had to dedicate a controller button for that sucker way back in the day.
Nice.
Yeah, and we had clan support. We had trying to think what was interesting or what was really kind of contentious. I know matchmaking was a big deal.
I mean, even pregame, the fact that you had a pregame and postgame lobbies where you could organize yourselves with friends and communicate against the people you just had. Of course, communicate very politely about the match that you had just played. And of course, yeah, there's a lot of things that I think many of us, when we were first playing Halo 2, certainly took for granted, right? That we popped in this disc, and all of a sudden we were competing with people that we used to have to lug our Xboxes and TVs over with, as well as competing with people across the world. So I think a lot of that, when Dennis started to tell me around the end of our RTX panel, he's like, hey, Max has this community background where he wanted to, you know, create this social experience where it's easy to find matches are great, and it really starts to make sense when you think about the framework of Halo 2 and Xbox Live.
Yeah, you know, when I was working on the online features, I was to a certain extent, I was in a vacuum. I didn't really have a lot of direction. I did have a lot of community background. At Bungie, back pre-Halo days, I was responsible for managing the community for the Myth games online for BungieNet. So I had some experience, and I had some ideas, things I wanted to do, like parties was my own kind of crazy concoction. And then matchmaking was the one place where I actually felt like I got some creative direction from Jason Jones, actually, one of the co-founders of Bungie. And it was really interesting because his creative direction, when I kind of explained what we wanted to do with matchmaking, what Jason said to me is, all right, two things you need to be really careful about, two things you have to do. Number one is you have to make it so that it's like a candy machine. It's like, what do you mean? Every time, like a gumball machine, every time you put a quarter in, you get a piece of tasty candy. Okay, all right. And then number two, once you're in matchmaking, you need to make it easier to stay in than to get out. Make it easier to keep playing than to leave. So I took that as kind of creative direction to heart and interpreted that, and that's why at the end of the match-made game, for instance, you stay in that group and then another game automatically starts up. That cycle repeats itself automatically. That was my translation of his very odd creative direction.
Thank you, Max. I think one thing that has become a tradition, and you guys should let me know, if